So what we've got is we've got a small, essentially think of just the chest piece of a stethoscope for people who don't know what the device looks like. It's just the round chest piece that goes on the patient's chest. So what I did was I miniaturized it all down into one handheld device that fits in the palm of your hand that goes on the patient's chest. And then we connect it to earbud headphones or, Bose headphones, Beats or anything like that. You can wear it with any kind of headphones. And it's just a small little device that uses external headphones. And that's what we reduced it down to.
There's a picture of it right behind you. Is that correct? That's the latest photo right behind you?
That's it. And and to give some scale to that fits in the palm of your hand.
Great.
So in fact, here it is. I've got one right here, actually. So that's the actual size of the device.
Awesome. Okay.
So that, shrunk it down into that, and that's what we sell today. And it's very small, very compact. And the idea was to use earbud headphones or regular headphones. And that's been a big advantage during the whole COVID crisis. We can connect it to almost anything. We can connect it to, wired headphones. We can put a Bluetooth transmitter into it. We can do wireless transmission. People can put the Bluetooth, the stethoscope with a little transmitter inside a Ziploc bag, and they can close it up for infection control, or they can put it in a glove, a medical glove, and just listen through the glove, keep it clean. So infection control has been, people in that area who have had to deal with that have been really, beating a path to our door to get as many of these as they can. And then it connects up for telemedicine. So telemedicine has really exploded, and we've been in that business for about 5 years. And the fact that it connects into a computer in a very easy way, it works with Zoom, it works with other video conferencing platforms. So a doctor can examine and listen to a patient remotely on telemedicine, and a doctor can see all this and use headphones and do things that they can't do with a regular stethoscope for infection control. So between infection control and telemedicine, things have just exploded in the last few months.
I would think so. In fact, when I was doing my research, I thought, well, I wonder if he's behind on orders. I wonder if he's able to keep up with demand. How is that lately? Like, are you back ordered by months, or how's it been lately?
We got back ordered very, very fast.
Mm-hmm.
The demand just absolutely exploded. And
wow,
we just got incredibly back ordered, and there was just a storm of different things that occurred. COVID took off, airports closed, demand skyrocketed. We've got global supply chains. We do our own assembly, but we get parts from other countries. And now what's happening is that airlines aren't flying anymore. DHL, FedEx, and UPS are backed up like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
The airports in all these places, in Shanghai and Hong Kong, are just backed up where, even if you're doing absolute express shipment because you need suddenly a huge amount of inventory of parts and raw materials, they can't even get on a flight for a week.
Yeah, wow.
Because the stuff is just backing up like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So it was incredibly challenging. The logistics, the supply chain, the manufacturing capacity. We brought on more people to do manufacturing, and we pulled off manufacturing quantities that we wouldn't have dreamed were possible. Now we worked 12, 14-hour days, 7 days a week. Mm-hmm. We had to protect our employees at the same time. So we sent everybody to work at home who could work at home, got very defensive about the procedures and protections we used in the company so that we nobody was going to get sick.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was the stress level exploded along with the orders. The stress level exploded. I can't understate that. It was extremely demanding. And then by skyrocketing our production, we basically managed to keep up and get up to speed and get up to date.
Wow. I'm guessing like supply chain and operations management is not necessarily your favorite, but that's what you've been doing a lot of lately. Let me ask you a couple of questions. So telehealth is already like ramping up, right? Even before COVID, telehealth is, moving forward. And then this is somewhat. Okay. And then this is speeding it up. For the listeners, can you because I was really trying to just visualize all this in my head when I was preparing. So this the stethoscope, it's in the hands of the patient at home. The patient has that unit at home, and they're holding it when they're on Zoom with their doctor, and the doctor's saying, yeah, move it up, move it left, move it, yeah, move it here. And the doctor's listening through Zoom while the patient moves it around. Is that accurate?
That's basically it. A lot of the use is where you might have a home care nurse who goes in with a
Ah,
kit.
okay.
So the nurse will go in with a kit, with the stethoscope, with a computer, with other, medical devices and things like that. Go and visit the patient at home and do this. Or what it might be is that it might be a remote clinic, where it's a remote clinic into a hospital. So there are a lot of different locations where it's not necessarily only the patient in the home. Sometimes it's nursing homes
I see.
where you've got a lockdown nursing home, you've
I
got a
see.
doctor who's remote. Um, there are even situations that we've encountered where, excuse me,
Yep. No worries.
sorry, let me just clear my throat.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. Yeah, I was really, I'm fascinated by the whole visual of that, because I was thinking to myself, um, you know, I understood the Zoom. By the way, there's a great interview you did where I think it was with Zoom and maybe somebody else, where you're going through exactly how that works with Zoom,
Yeah.
and people
Hmm.
can find that on YouTube. Great video.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I was fascinated to learn all the different other areas. And now that, yeah, like nursing homes, I didn't even think about it. Is the nurse or the CNA or whoever it is in the nursing home that's using it, are they recording it and the doctor's listening later, or it's live and the doctor's listening right then?
They do both. There's a bias towards listening live,
Okay.
but they are able to either record it on an app that we provide, and they can then send the sounds.
Okay.
Or what they can do is they can do it live. As I say, the preference is towards live because that's more familiar in terms of doing direct, real-time exams.
Mm.
And, the use case, basically, the multiple use cases for telemedicine. So the one is, as you described, it can be used in the home. It might be a healthcare worker or a nurse visiting a home.
Yeah.
It might be nurses or assistants in a lockdown nursing facility, or, a long-term care facility of some kind where the doctor is remote. In some cases in New York City, what they did was that they discharged patients who really weren't quite ready to be discharged. They discharged them in order to empty out the hospitals for COVID patients
Mm-hmm.
during the explosion of COVID that occurred in New York City. And so telemedicine providers were actually going to patients' homes because they really needed quite a high level of monitoring and care, because they would have been in the hospital had they not been empty, in the hospitals not being emptied out. Another use case, so there are those kinds of situations where they're,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
they're visiting people's homes and they're doing that kind of thing. And then another use case, which is kind of unexpected and unusual, was that there were physicians who had been quarantined.
Ah,
So
okay.
now what you've got is you've got a shortage of healthcare workers.
Mm.
You've got these very highly skilled physicians who are quarantined at home, nothing to do. They may not be very sick themselves, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
And then what the hospital wants is that they want those doctors to still be available to examine patients. So
Mm-hmm.
now you've got the
Yep.
doctor in the home. The tables are turned. The doctor's
Wow.
in the home, patients are in the hospital, and the doctor's continuing to work.
Interesting. Interesting. If the patient does have it at home, are they getting it from their doctor, or is the doctor saying, hey, I use these, you need to order one so that I can just do this from home? How does that, what's that conversation look like between doctor and patient?
That model is evolving.
Okay. Okay.
That model is evolving. There's not a lot of, use case of the patient at home using it yet.
But I see that.
It's
Listen, can I just,
thresholding.
can I, can I, yeah,
It's about to happen, or
I was, yeah,
it is happening. But what I'm saying is that we ain't seen nothing yet on that whole model.
right there is where I want to pause, because when I was thinking about your business model, right, I thought to myself, holy crap. I mean, if this explodes to where everybody has one of these, just like they have a thermometer at home, this is how it's going to go down, right? This will totally explode his business, is what I was thinking. Am I reading that wrong? Am I?
No, you're not.
Yeah,
You got it spot on. That is where these things are going. These things are going into the home.
Mm-hmm.
We make a very high grade professional product.
Okay.
So it is largely the professional market that's using these right now. But we've essentially said we know that the home market will take off.
Yes.
We know that when the home market is ready, we will be ready.
Okay.
So the home market is now that telemedicine is now a word in the English language instead of being a technical term.
Mm-hmm.
We're going there. We're going there. But we are essentially it's one of those things of go where the puck will be as opposed to where the puck is. But there's no point in standing around waiting for the puck to get there. So there's no point in going into the home when there's no home market. So we've sort of staged our release of products according to where the demand is, and we're prepared and we're ready, and we're headed there.
Good for you. What's the business model there? Are you thinking insurance will pay for it for the patients to get it, or it's just they just buy it just like they buy a thermometer eventually, or the doctor pays for it and gives it to them? Do you know how that's going to go down? What do you predict?
We don't yet know what's going to happen because telemedicine reimbursement, a lot of people may not be aware, but telemedicine reimbursement itself only really broke loose the way that it is now with COVID.
Okay.
Until COVID, there was a very patchwork situation of reimbursement across different states under different conditions, with different caveats about what kind of patients were eligible and what kind of patients weren't. And it was a little bit of a maze and a bit of a difficult thing to navigate. And that was one of the things that was slowing down the adoption. So then what happened was that COVID comes along and suddenly it's absolutely urgent, and COVID essentially compressed time, right? Things that were happening, suddenly things that were going to happen over years were happening over weeks. And telemedicine is one of those things. Reimbursement models is one of those things, and it's evolving. It's changing very rapidly. So we don't know exactly whether these are going to be prescribed devices by the doctor, paid for by the insurance company, given to the patient at the discharge. People will have them in their homes. All that stuff is evolving.
When you make a sale right now, do you target the hospital or the doctor individually? Like, how do you target that from a business development perspective? How does that work? We're
talking to all of the above. We're talking to so many different groups. There's so many use cases.
All right.
We're actually astonished at how creative people are and how the different use cases are, even within the question of infection control. There can be 5 different ways that hospitals want to use. We want to use it this way. Other people want to use it that way. So we're very much listening to the customer and listening to what the market wants and listening to people like that. And that's largely the way we operate.
Adoption. I was thinking about adoption of this product. I'm just going to guess there's probably people that you tried to get to use it, like doctors or certain hospitals or whoever your target was. You're like, hey man, you need this. And they're kind of fighting you on it because they're old school or whatever, the doctors, they use the same thing for years. And now all of a sudden they're calling saying, hey, we need those.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The Riderflex podcast features entrepreneurs, business executives, and the stories behind how they got there, as well as daily tips on career advice and job interviews. Our show can be heard just about anywhere these days, but you can visit riderflex.com and click on the podcast page to hear all the previous episodes and learn more about the recruiting and consulting services we provide. Contact us at the email address info@riderflex.com or 888-964-5876. Thanks so much for listening, and if you enjoy our show, please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like the episodes.